The conjunction between Chiron and the North Node is a karmic prelude for what's to come during the next eclipse season, especially when the total solar eclipse in the sign of Aries hits us on April 8th. Chiron is known as the wounded healer, and while this weird little asteroid can certainly be tied to physical health, it's most known for its connection to psychological health due to its ties to emotional wounds, trauma, insecurity, vulnerability, guilt, shame, and feelings of alienation and awkwardness. When Chiron becomes active in the sky, our psychological stuff tends to bubble up to the surface, which can lead to profound healing experiences. And with the North Node involved, an eclipse season just around the corner, the types of wounds that are reopened will span across many lifetimes. And the healing that occurs as a result of this will be life-changing, not just in this lifetime, but for many lifetimes to come. In this video, we're going to dive deep into the fated transitions this conjunction will bring, including an overview of the societal implications and an extended forecast for all 12 signs. But before we get into that, make sure you hit the subscribe button so you never miss an important astrology video or tutorial. I post a new video every single Saturday at 9 a.m. Mountain Standard Time, and so you don't want to miss that. All right, so let's kind of get into the energy of this conjunction. Big picture, broad overview. We're going to zoom way out and look at the historical significance of this conjunction and how this is going to impact us as a whole, as a collective, as a society. And then we'll start to zoom in on the personal implications. We'll do plenty of that in this video. Don't worry. This is going to be a very holistic, deep dive into all things Chiron conjunct the North Node. So first and foremost, the last time that this conjunction between Chiron and the North Node occurred was in 2008. More specifically, it was in the fall of 2008 on October 16th. That would have been when the true node came into a conjunction with Chiron. The mean node conjunction was actually on July 27th of 2008. And I've been looking at both more recently just because when I'm doing readings for people and when things come up in my own life and in the lives of people that I'm close to, I've started to notice that now that I'm paying attention to the mean node, because I was taught using the true node, that the mean node does carry a lot of weight and it might actually be a more significant influence than the true node even. And so I've been dabbling, I've been looking at both. But what's really sticking out here with this last time that the conjunction occurred between the North Node, mean or true, and Chiron was that this was happening in Aquarius in 2008, and this was around the time of a few different things. I bet you can kind of think about what was going on around then. 2008 was a big year. So it was very, very close to the 2008 presidential election, which had major historical significance because that was the first time we had a Black president who was elected into office as the president of the United States here in America. So that was a pretty big thing. The other thing that was going on was, of course, the housing collapse. That really, really took hold at the end of 2008 and into that start of 2009. And so we had the beginning of the housing collapse. Well, not really the beginning. It was already set in motion at that time, but that's when everyone became aware of it. The people that were not paying attention, that were not aware, all of a sudden this was the thing that was in everybody's face. In fact, in December of 2008, the Case-Shiller Home Price Index reported the largest price drop in its history. And so that was very shortly after this Chiron conjunction to the North Node. And so this period of time was significant because we had some shakeups. And, some of those shakeups were tied in part to this North Node conjunction to Chiron. And this will become more apparent as we go through this next section here that I'm about to talk about. So the last time we had Chiron conjunct the North Node in Aries was actually in 1969. We actually have a lot of energy from the late 60s, especially 1968, 1969 coming up this year in 2024, including the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction. There was one of those happening in Libra back in 1968 through 1969, and we saw all sorts of technological revolutions, especially when it came to the space program, right? And the first man to walk on the moon. there was a lot going on, obviously, in terms of revolution and disruption and, freedom and all of these things. But what was really sticking out to me with this was that North Node conjunction to Aries, because a few different things are kind of being highlighted there with Aries. So Aries, of course, represents war. It's aggression. Aries is named for the god of war. It's ruled by Mars. It's a very martial energy. And there were a lot of protests over the Vietnam War happening around that time. The United States was involved in a war that was very controversial. And you can see that being reflected in what's going on right now in 2024 as well. There are many different wars that are breaking out, and the United States is, being involved in a lot of those wars. And people have very strong opinions about that right now. And so you can see how that's coming up, and that could be a big part of this energy this time around as well. Wounding around war and conflict, vulnerability, difficulty, trauma around war and conflict. These things are very Chiron and Aries. And with the North Node involved, it takes on a historical significance. The transition of the nodes, when it comes to the way that it impacts society at large, is that it really changes the destiny of the world, the destiny of humanity, the direction that humanity is headed into. And I would say that that period in 1969 was one of those periods that altered the course of humanity in a variety of different ways, war being just one of them. And obviously the war started prior to that time. There was other stuff going on around that time as well, but 1969 was a very pivotal year, and that Chiron and Aries energy was a part of that story of the Vietnam War. The other thing that, happened around that time period, especially in the late 60s, as we had Chiron in the sign of Aries, and we started to have this, because it really started, this Chiron conjunction to the North Node was at the very, very beginning degrees of Aries. So this was like when things really shifted into that placement. But one of the things that was kind of a theme around that time, and even into the early 70s and all of that, was a lot of energy around women's rights and gender equality, and also a lot of energy around race, and a lot of energy around sexuality. And all of these themes have been coming up again with Chiron moving into the sign of Aries ever since Chiron moved into the sign of Aries and has been transiting that placement in the sky. This conjunction between the North Node and Chiron could bring up wounds around all of these topics and themes that have been maybe not necessarily buried, but haven't really been addressed fully, because this is an energy with Chiron where things need to be brought up and amplified. North Node is amplification. It intensifies things. It makes this energy very insatiable, and its need to be rectified. And with that Chiron conjunction to the North Node, it could bring these things up, and it could alter the course of humanity as a result. And there could be actually really profound healing that comes about as a result of this as well. Maybe not right away, but it could lead to something. The thing that's going on here, though, with like the war and the conflict, with all of this, really, this is, as a society, I really feel like this is going to be poking at people, poking at our wounds, poking at our societal wounds, poking at the things that we don't necessarily want to be looking at, but we need to be looking at. So I think we're going to see a lot of that around the time that this comes to a head. And this, like I said before, is going to be the prelude to the energy that's going to be more prevalent around the time of the eclipse that's happening on April 8th, which cuts right through the United States. We'll talk about that in its own video, but we'll dabble with that a little bit today because we really need to. So basically what's going on here in the month of February and into March is this lead up, this prelude. And this energy actually comes exact, you guys, on February 19th. That's when we have Chiron conjunct the true node. And then on March 5th, that's when we have Chiron conjunct the mean node. Those two particular days, and maybe the week or so before and after, those are the times that I really have my eye on for things starting to heat up on a global scale, and for things to start to heat up on a personal level. So this isn't just about what's going on in society. This is about our own wounds. This is about our own insecurities. This is about our own identity. Aries is all about self-identity. It's about self-preservation. It's about independence. It's about, doing what you want to do when you want to do it. It's about the ego identity as well. Not always the case, but, in this particular circumstance, that's a theme that I think is important to make note of. So Chiron and Aries can be the wounded identity. We can see a lot of societal issues pertaining to identity politics or identity issues pertaining to race, gender, gender identity, things like that could spring up around that conjunction, like I said before. But on a personal level, on a deeply personal level, this can bring up shame, vulnerability, insecurity, hurt feelings around our identity in the specific area of life being impacted based on how this shows up in your birth chart in particular. And so, for example, if you have this Chiron conjunction in Aries in your 6th house, which is the house of health, work, daily routines, service, and servitude, there could be, some sort of wounding, some sort of insecurity, some sort of trauma that bubbles up, usually from the past, but it could be even something that's brand new, especially with the North Node involved, involving your identity amongst your coworkers, maybe, within the workspace, or involving your health that, does have something to do with the way that you present yourself out in the world, or with your identity or your sense of identity. That could be part of it too. And so we'll get into this when we get into the forecast for all 12 signs, but I just want to point out the fact that this is going to hit you way more strongly if you have your sun, moon, or rising in the cardinal signs. And so in Aries, Cancer, Libra, or Capricorn, you're going to be feeling this way more strongly. You're going to be feeling the ramifications of the difficulties experienced in a more potent way. It's going to feel much more powerful, much more synchronistic. Also, that's a part of this, much more meaningful for you, especially if you have, your sun, moon, rising around the middle degrees of those cardinal signs to the early end degrees. And so we have this energy around the wounded identity and also the wounded will. So this could be shame, vulnerability, insecurity, trauma, difficulty, awkwardness, all of those things, all of those deep psychological issues surrounding your ability to manifest your will, to do what you want to do when you want to do it. There could be something that's holding you back from achieving or accomplishing or getting your way when really you need to get your way right now. And that could be part of this. This could also be, I think Zoe and I talked about this in our 2024 forecast. This could also be kind of, because it is such a self-centered sort of energy where it's about me and my wounds and my traumas and my difficulties and my healing process, which, for some people that's going to be necessary. But this is a really amplified energy because of that energy of the North Node being involved. The North Node amplifies it, makes people just insatiable and just laser focused on whatever it is that's being activated. And right now it's these wounds, right? It's our wounds, my wound, my difficulty. And there could be a lot of energy around that. Like, my difficulty is most important. What I'm going through is more important than what you're going through. A lot of that self-focused energy. I would say also a lot of energy around self-care. I know that's been kind of a buzzword, self-care, which that just means all sorts of things in this day and age, from gorging on chocolate and watching Netflix to more appropriate things like working out and taking time to, do good things for your body and mind. But yeah, I think we'll see a lot of themes around self-care, and almost as if like everyone's fighting about who has it worse or whose healing is most important right now. I would say that could be a part of it too. This self-focused energy that you might see with your friends, family, maybe even as a whole in society, something along those lines too. But with Chiron conjunct the North Node, this is a point of healing, you guys. This is like a really big opportunity and an important opportunity to see what's bubbling up for you, especially when it feels not so nice. The internal experience of this is going to be much more challenging than the external manifestations for most people. And so whatever you're feeling on the inside, that's going to be very important to pay attention to, especially if it feels yucky, if it feels like awkward, if it feels just like something you don't want to touch, if it feels cringy to you. That's going to be the thing that you're going to want to address. You're going to want to focus on. You're going to want to tackle head on during this time. And if you do, and if you go through that process of healing your old traumas, healing your old wounds, healing those old issues from your past or from your past lives, that is going to serve you so, so well as we move into eclipse season. It's also going to show you what might bubble up and become amplified even more so, or reach this like transition point or this choice point during the eclipse season as well. And so it's giving you clues about what's to come, but it's also giving you an opportunity to start working on it now so it doesn't just kind of slap you in the face and come out of nowhere and cause you a bunch of turmoil when there's external variables at play that might add fuel to the fire and might make things much more challenging around the time of the eclipse season, because that's when we're going to be making so many big life changes. A lot of people will across the board. There's no going around that. It's a big, massive, powerful solar eclipse, and you're getting an opportunity this month. Look at it this way. You're getting an opportunity this month to work on it ahead of time. So when it comes up, it's not going to be so difficult for you. And so this should be viewed, even though it's going to feel weird, even though you might feel uncomfortable, this should be viewed and can be viewed as an opportunity to heal, an opportunity to get ahead of something, an opportunity to do the self-reflection, the inner work that you need to do to make it through that eclipse season better, brighter, more powerful, more aligned, more purposeful than ever. There's something here too that's preventing us from achieving our ambitions, because the Aries is very ambitious. It's very enthusiastic. It has to do with achievement. It has to do with, what it is that we want to go out in the world and accomplish, manifest through our will. And so this could also be, past life. Again, I keep saying past life. It doesn't have to be past life, you guys, if that's not something that you like or that you believe in, whatever. You can yell at me in the comment section if you want. You don't have to look at it that way. You can look at it as early life experiences, and it's probably going to be both, to be honest. So something that's happened in the past that you have not addressed all the way, that is preventing you from accomplishing or achieving something in the area of your chart where this is being impacted, that's really where the magic happens. That's really what you need to start working on and working through in this prelude, especially in February and March, especially around those dates, February 19th, March 5th, that I talked about at this earlier on in this video. And so that's something really important to pay attention to as well. Chiron conjunct the North Node. It's not just, you guys, Chiron has a lot of mental, psychological, those like inner wounded implications. However, Chiron is a huge player in medical astrology as well, and Chiron can impact physical healing. And so, especially for certain people with certain placements that are more physical in their manifestation, with this conjunction, you could go through a process of physical healing. You could bring up something that maybe you weren't addressing, maybe you weren't aware of, or maybe you were aware of, but you've been avoiding because it feels uncomfortable to you. This discomfort is a big Chiron thing. And maybe it comes up at this time, and maybe you do have to address it. And maybe there is going to be an external process of physical healing. So that's something to pay attention to as well. Pay attention to your physical health. Pay attention to what you're putting in your body. Pay attention to how your mental state impacts the physical body. That's a big one for this as well. It's not just one or the other, you guys. Your thoughts, your feelings, your emotions all of this impacts your physiology in a very real, biological, provable, scientific way. It's not just woo. I've studied this stuff in clinical psychology because I do have a master's degree and a background in it, in all the mind-body medicine that I've studied, and there's science behind it. It's not just like, oh, your emotions are impacting, your liver because of some sort of energetic connection. That's true too, believe it or not. But there are actual biological processes that happen when you feel something negative, when you're, dealing with trauma, when you're in a state of fight or flight, when your nervous system is dysregulated, when you're pessimistic and focusing on things that are negative versus when you're optimistic and focusing on things that are joyful. And so looking at your mental state and how that is impacting your physical healing, that's going to be really important around this time too, because Chiron really does transcend those boundaries. And Chiron does have to do, you guys, especially with, it has to do with alternative medicine, traditional medicine, really. So things like herbalism and things like just diet, nutrition, and basic things like homeopathy, things like really any type of traditional medicine. I keep thinking herbalism because that's just what I study and it's in my brain, but there are other things. And anything that's really considered to be alternative, that's more Chiron. As opposed to allopathic medicine. And so thinking about how you can integrate different modalities of healing, even if that's not fully your thing, maybe just looking at a couple of supplements you could take or some herbs that might, help calm your nervous system and also impact physical healing, or, going to a practitioner that works on, mind-body medicine and does mind-body therapies on that level. Those are all things to look into at this time if you are experiencing a physical healing crisis, which might come up for, again, certain placements. We'll talk about that when we get into the forecast for all 12 signs. But speaking of healing, early bird enrollment for my Medical Astrology Foundations course is actually open this weekend. I wasn't supposed to tell you guys. I wasn't going to tell you guys, but I'm telling you, so you can get all the details for that at the link down in the description below and get a special little discount on your enrollment if you enroll early, if you enroll now. Classes don't start until March 11th. That's why we're giving you that little boost, that little discount. But if you're watching this after February 6th, that's all right too. Our regular enrollment opens on February 29th, which is right smack dab in the middle of this conjunction between the North Node and Chiron, and that is for a reason. And so head on over to the link down in the description below to get on the wait list so you'll be notified when this opens. And I'll also be teaching a free Medical Astrology 101 workshop on February 29th. So keep an eye out for the invite to join us because that's going to be happening very soon. All right, so let's kind of get into the charts here before I look at the forecast for all 12 signs for you guys. That's something I definitely wanted to do, and I need to move myself over a little bit. There I am. Can you see me? Yes. Okay, so I need to move over a little more than that. Maybe I'll edit out that adjustment. Maybe not. Who knows? Okay, good. I think we're good. Anyway, I wanted to kind of go over the charts for this real quick with you guys before we get into the forecast for all 12 signs, because I do think this is important to look at and to make note of. All right, so first and foremost, you can see here, this is the Chiron conjunction to the true node. This is the one that's happening on February 19th, and this is going to be kind of the start that kicks everything off. It's already in motion, you guys. You're probably already feeling this as this video is coming out. This has been going on for a while. It just reaches this like pinnacle, this pivotal moment, this peak of intensity on these dates and around these dates. And so we have the North Node in a conjunction to Chiron. And what's interesting about this to me is that it's pretty uninhibited. And so it's not making any major Ptolemaic aspects with anything else in the chart. So I find that to be kind of interesting. The only thing that's kind of an aspect is obviously the moon. The moon on this day is in the sign of Cancer. It's going to be making a really nice T-square with the nodes and with Chiron. But other than that, the other planets are kind of alone. And so this is kind of in isolation. It's happening by itself. It's doing its own thing. And so this is going to be a very powerful energy that's coming up. And it's coming up around the same time as some of the stuff I talked about in my 3-month forecast for the winter months, which is this conjunction here between Pluto, Venus, Mars, Mercury that you can see in the sign of Aquarius, squaring off to Jupiter and Uranus. That's going to be a really intense, really heavy energy, and that's actually going to amplify in March. And so we have these two things kind of happening in tandem, where we have this big, massive energy of change, of chaos, of disruption that comes up really abruptly. And then we have all of this psychological stuff and woundedness and healing to do. So it's going to be a bit of a shakeup. It's going to be a lot all at once. But I would say, like I said before, if you're addressing this now, you're going to be ahead of the game. You're going to be making sure that when this comes about even more strongly, especially at end of March, start of April, when we have the eclipses, that you're going to be ready to go. This one is the mean node conjunction. And so, like I said before, I've been noticing the mean node is really heavily implicated when actual events occur. And so you'll feel stuff when the true node is happening, but it's not always like you have this activation of the true node and then something happens right on that day. In fact, it's usually not that, in my experience. Sometimes it is, but usually not. With the mean node, though, I've been noticing that it does have more of a immediate, apparent physical manifestation. And so I wanted to point out that the mean node conjuncts Chiron at 17 degrees on March 5th. And again, there's this weird thing going on here where the moon is in the opposite sign as it is in the first conjunction, where it's in the sign of Capricorn and it's starting to form a T-square with Chiron and the lunar nodes. And the other thing that's going on here that makes this one a little bit gentler is the energy of Mars conjunction to Venus in the sign of Aquarius, and how this is making a really nice little gentle sextile to Chiron in the North Node, and it's actually trining the South Node. At this point in time, Mars is almost exact in this sextile and trine configuration. And so while Mars is squaring Uranus and bringing up a lot of chaos, it's almost as if we're doing the inner work, or if we are doing the inner work, if we are dealing with the trauma, the guilt, shame, vulnerability, insecurity, the karmic stuff that's coming up at this time, we're going to get through that change a lot more easily. So focusing on the internal change will help you to get through the external manifestation of those changes, that disruption that's coming up around this period in March. And then finally, I just wanted to illustrate how closely this conjunction is still happening into April. This is going to be really prevalent, you guys, this conjunction between Chiron and the North Node, for a couple of months. I mean, this is not going away anytime soon. And so I would say till maybe like summer, really, you're going to be feeling this. But this is the peak, the pivotal moment. And so we have the North Node at 15 degrees, Chiron's at 19 degrees, so about 4 degrees apart. But you can see here that Chiron is in an exact conjunction with the sun and moon at the time of the eclipse. Exact, to the minute, exact. And so this is hugely significant. This is a reset, a fresh start. And this is also an energy where Chiron and Chiron themes, especially Chiron and Aries themes, are going to be front and center. I would say that there could be a lot of energy around conflict, involving potentially war and things like that. That's not, I don't think will be a surprise to anyone at this point. But the first time it came around, with the last eclipse cycle, a lot of people who were not astrologers were caught off guard by that. This could be, a deepening of that or a worsening of those situations that comes up. But on a personal level, this is going to be the stuff that bubbles up in February and March, internally and externally, that healing that's taking place, that healing that is screaming at you that needs to take place, that you need to actually address at this time. If you're addressing it, this will be a little easier, but this is where it comes into this next level, and you have this moment of it's almost like it's a new beginning that stems from this. And it feels uncomfortable. This is not going to be a comfortable eclipse for most people. However, there is this deep healing that takes place where as this is happening, and especially after this happens, it's like, wow, I'm so glad that A, B, and C came to fruition and that I had to let all this go and I had to move into this new direction and this new opportunity came up for me, even though it was uncomfortable in the moment, because wow, I needed that. Like, it's going to be that energy. Like, I needed that for my own well-being, for my own sanity, for my own health. I needed that. And so whatever is coming up for you, it's going to be what you need, not what you want. And it is going to, take things to the next level. Also, if you are somebody who's a healer. So if you're learning medical astrology in my Medical Astrology Foundations course, I mean, this could be the energy that takes things to the next level for you. So this is a great energy, actually, with all of these conjunctions for people that are in the healing arts and healing professions, where there's a deepening of this that's very karmic, that's very fated, where if this is the direction that your soul is meant to move into in this lifetime, it will take you there. It will take you deeper and deeper and deeper. And and you'll become like obsessed. You'll become obsessed with the work that you're doing if you are in that field, and especially if this is hitting you in certain ways, which we'll talk about in the forecast for all 12 signs. So yeah, if you're in the healing profession, this could be really great. Big themes coming up in the society at large, in the ethers, on the world stage, involving health, involving alternative medicine potentially, involving war and conflict, involving mental health. That could be a big thing too. And then also involving identity and wounds and vulnerabilities, insecurities, difficulties, trauma around that. So look for those themes, you guys. I think those are going to be the big ones. This is also a time, and we'll get into this more when we get into this actual forecast, but I just want to say this is a time where there's going to be a lot of communication around these themes in between people and kind of, again, society at large. All right, and so that is the general forecast. Let's get into the forecast for all 12 signs, beginning, of course, with Aries and Aries rising. So for Aries and for Aries rising, this energy is impacting you very personally, very directly. It's in your first house or with your ascendant, sun, or moon. And so this could be a time period, and you might already have been feeling this because Chiron's been in your sign for quite some time, where there is this additional layer of awkwardness or insecurity around who you are and the way that you show up in the world, around your identity, around the way other people see you, around maybe even your physical body or physical appearance. This could also bring up health issues in some way that you might need to heal through and address. Health issues that happen when Chiron is involved often have not just physiological roots, but psychological and emotional roots as well. Usually there's some sort of difficulty or trauma or psychological wounding that is connected to that illness. And so all of these things might be bubbling up for you in a really profound, really big way. There could be a time period during this activation, really now through, April, even May, where something comes up that makes you feel ashamed. Like you feel ashamed of who you are, or something that you did makes you feel ashamed, because this is usually self-inflicted when anything happens in your first house. It's like you kind of did it to yourself, or it's a result of something that you created or instigated or initiated at some point in time, even if it's not right now. It could have been something from the past. And so, this is something where it's like a self-inflicted wound, where now you have to deal with it. Now you have to heal through it. Now it's coming back up and you have to actually do something with this energy. I would say that this is going to be a time where fated, karmic, and synchronistic influences could conspire in your favor, actually, to help you to heal through any shame or guilt around being who you are and exercising your will out in the world. I mean, Aries is a sign that wants what it wants when it wants it, and it could be that maybe, you push too hard, or you were too ambitious or too driven, and you stepped on somebody else's toes, and maybe that caught you off guard and you had to pull back. Whatever it is that's coming up for you, though, this is going to help you to work through it. It's going to help you to heal through it. If you're feeling less ambitious than normal because you feel this difficulty or this shame or this awkwardness around exercising your will and doing the thing that you know you need to do, this is going to help you. And so this is going to be about focusing on what you need for your own healing. And I would say that with this energy and during this time period, the right people, the right circumstances, the right environmental influences, the right situations are very likely to come up in a very profound, synchronistic, unusual sort of way that feels like it has a deeper meaning in order to help you to heal. If you are somebody who's in the healing arts, if you are somebody who's a medical professional, or especially if you're in some alternative medical field, this is a really beautiful time for you to move in a new direction with the way that you're practicing your medicine, with the way that you're helping and healing other people. This could take you in a completely different route than what you thought you were going to take, but it's going to be the route that you need to take when it comes to the work that you do and the way that you show up to heal other people and to lead other people through your example of healing. That could be another thing. It's kind of like an energy if you are in one of those fields, as I know a lot of my viewers happen to be, where it's like, how can I lead others to heal through this, that, or the other thing when I'm still working through the process? I'm not fully healed yet. Well, the answer is you can. You've made a lot of strides, and especially after this energy comes exact, it's kind of like taking you to the next level with everything. Just because you're not all the way there, or you feel like you're not all the way there, doesn't mean that you don't have something to offer. It doesn't mean that how far you've come to this point isn't meaningful. It doesn't mean that you can't show others the way. And so this is a really beautiful energy for you to step into that energy of the healer. And even if you're not going to be doing that directly, it's kind of like whatever it is that you're going through, whatever it is that you're dealing with, whatever difficulties are coming up right now that are kind of bringing things up inside that hurt, these things that you're working through and working on, once you've fully embraced it, once you've fully healed through it, once you've fully come out the other side, you're going to be able to lead other people by example, even if it's just your friends, your family, people that you come into contact with by chance, even if it's not in some sort of professional capacity. And so think about how you can take this experience that you're having right now and use it to guide and help other people, because that's going to be a part of your path moving forward. For Taurus and for Taurus rising. So for Taurus, this energy is happening in your 12th house, which is the hidden house. It's the house of secrets. It's the house of self-sabotage and self-undoing. It's the house of things that you are letting go of and moving on from. And it's interesting because the North Node is like moving into something, and Chiron is about like kind of healing and working through something. The 12th house in particular, too, is very much tied to past life experiences. So let's start there because we are talking about the nodes. So there's something going on here that's tied to past experience in this lifetime or in a different one that you've been holding on to very unconsciously, that may be bubbling up to the surface of your consciousness in unexpected ways, through dreams, through messages, through downloads, through meditation, through just fleeting insights, fleeting glimpses of something that come up for you around this time. This is the time to pay attention to that. This is the time to embrace it. This is the time to heal and go through that healing process. It's very important that you do so. This is also a time period where you have to let go of something in order to move into something new, in order to heal, in order to move past those wounds, traumas, insecurities, vulnerabilities that you've been holding on to that have been unconsciously sabotaging you from achieving and accomplishing your goals. This could also be an energy here with Chiron in the 12th house and that North Node energy, especially with that North and South Node axis being in your 12th and your 6th, where there's some sort of spiritual healing that needs to take place in order to access the external physical manifestation of healing if you're somebody who's dealing with health issues. And so that could be something to pay attention to. This would be one of the best times if you're someone who's into this type of thing to do like a past life regression hypnosis or something along those lines. I don't know what that is. That just popped up on my screen. That was weird. So definitely Consider something like that, or any form of hypnotherapy, anything that helps you to tap deeper into your subconscious reality, your subconscious realms, and to access that for healing would be really great to do right now. Dream work, meditative work, spiritual types of healing, all of that are going to be coming up for you right now. All right. And so for Gemini and for Gemini rising. So for Gemini, this is happening in your 11th house, which is the house of friends, social networks, groups of people that you surround yourself with by choice. And so this could bring up, first off, with Chiron in your 11th house, there could have been some sort of guilt, shame, vulnerability, insecurity, trauma, or wound involving social gatherings, involving friendship, involving socializing in general. This is a time where your social anxiety might be heightened. You might be feeling less comfortable in groups or more awkward. You might be feeling like an alien or an outsider amongst your social circle for some reason. This is going to bring that up, and this is going to show you the reasons for it. And this is going to help you to work through it, to heal through it, to move into something different. This is also a time period where if you do have a past experience that was traumatic or difficult for you around being alienated or isolated or not accepted by the group, maybe you were picked on in childhood by your peers or something along those lines, that's going to come up. It might not manifest in the same way, but something is going to be triggering, and something is going to call that back into your consciousness and into your life, and you're going to have to move on from it. You're going to have to work through it so you can move on to the next phase. There are friends and connections and new relationships that can come in right now that are deeply healing for you. And those connections, those relationships are going to feel different. They're going to feel synchronistic. They're going to feel important in a different way. So pay attention to new connections that come in around this time. They are important, and they're connections that you're intended to make in this lifetime so you can move into your path, your purpose more fully, and to achieve and accomplish your ambitions, especially your ambitions and goals that do involve working with a group or do involve connections with other people. This would be a really great time to join some sort of group activity that involves health, healing, or learning about healthcare, especially alternative healthcare or alternative medicine, if that's applicable to you. Maybe you're joining my Medical Astrology Foundations course. Going to plug that one more time because it seems aligned with where you're at in life. Or maybe it's something else entirely, but I love this energy for all of that. For Cancer and for Cancer rising, you guys are having this happen in your 10th house. There is something going on here that's holding you back from achieving and accomplishing your biggest goals and ambitions in your career, your public status, what you want to do and put out there in the world, the legacy you want to leave behind after your working years. It's almost as if there was like a public shaming or a public something that happened publicly that felt awkward or that increased your vulnerability with putting yourself out there. It could be that somebody that was in a position of power and authority, somebody who had the ability to green light you or red light you, said no. And you had that rejection and it made you feel inferior. Now is the time where you're going to work through that. You're going to work on that. You're going to move into the next phase of that healing process that you need to go through in order to get back on track with accomplishing your biggest goals, your biggest ambitions when it comes to your career, when it comes to what you're putting out there into the world. You're really working on moving in a whole new direction when it comes to your work and when it comes to your career right now. And what's holding you back is primarily psychological, not physical. Your own wounds, your own vulnerabilities. That's what's stopping you from taking it to the next level, from moving into the path that you are destined to move into in this lifetime, because the North Node's trying to take you there. But Chiron's kind of like, oh, this feels uncomfortable. Oh, I feel insecure. Oh, this doesn't feel good. Oh, what about this past experience that was so bad? What if that happens again? It's not going to necessarily happen again. You need to, work on that right now and get your mind around it so that way when the eclipse comes, that's really going to take you somewhere, right? That's going to take you through a process of big physical changes and manifestations, a big reset in your career. You need to do the inner work and the healing to prepare for that. And if you are a healer, by the way, if you're somebody who works in the medical alternative healthcare professions, whatever. This is a beautiful time for you to make big, big strides and to accomplish a lot. You're going to be taking things to the next level. For Leo and for Leo rising. So for Leo, this is happening in your 9th house, which is the house of travel, foreign connections, higher education, higher wisdom. It's also the house of your philosophical and religious value systems and beliefs. And so this is going to be an energy where there could be something that this is, to me, for a lot of Leos, this actually feels like a religious wound because the 9th house is the house of religion. Maybe you had a bad experience with religion in the past and that left a bad taste in your mouth and you feel uncomfortable with it now. But there's something that you have to kind of work through and heal through and embrace involving those religious value systems and beliefs, maybe seeing that there's some good in some of this or working through it and healing past it and realizing that, those value systems, those people that said that you weren't good enough, that you weren't enough, that you were evil or bad in some way for not believing what they believed, that is no longer applicable to you. You need to embrace what you believe now and what you know to be true in your heart, because you need to align yourself with your integrity. And that's going to be a big part of the eclipse energy, of the North Node energy. That's what you're moving into. And these old wounds and old vulnerabilities are holding you back. It could even be that you don't want to embrace or adopt any sort of religious values because of your past experience, but that's actually what you need right now. Religion could be healing. Religion could be powerful. Doing that philosophical deep dive could be the deepest, most profound healing experience that you need in this lifetime, and it could reverberate into future lifetimes. It could be something from a past lifetime that left you feeling just salty about all of it. And you're coming full circle. It's like, okay, not all religion is necessarily horrible. Not all of this is the same. This does have value to me. I don't have to be scared anymore. I don't have to feel this way anymore. So that could all be really powerful and really wonderful. There could also be some sort of, I would say for some people, shame or guilt or vulnerability, some sort of insecurity around higher education or around higher wisdom or the attainment of higher wisdom or higher education. If that's applicable to you, this is the time to move past it, because you might be moving in that direction and going back to school. There could also be an energy here around maybe fears or anxieties around foreign countries or foreign connections or traveling to foreign places. Again, it's something that you need to address and move through, because this is going to be coming up for you and you're going to have to embrace it. And so if you're working through the psychological components now, when the actual opportunities come up for you very quickly in the next couple of months, you'll be able to jump in and you won't feel so awkward about it. You won't feel so insecure. You won't feel so scared. All right. And then Chiron conjunct the North Node for Virgo is going to be in your 8th house. The 8th house is the house of very literal death. And so I'm going to start there with the least pleasant manifestation of this first. And no, this does not mean that someone's going to die, but there could be some sort of wound, some sort of trauma, some sort of insecurity or difficulty from your past involving a very literal death. Maybe somebody who you really cared about, someone who you loved and trusted, passed away. And that left a hole, that left some sort of wounding, some sort of very literal Chiron wounding. Maybe it was a pet. Maybe it was, a near-death experience or the threat of death even. Whatever this is for you, if that's applicable, now is a time where that's going to be coming up, not in like a literal fashion necessarily, but in a symbolic way, in a metaphorical way, in a way where some experience in your life that's maybe completely unrelated might be triggering that trauma, might be triggering those wounds. This is the time to go in and address this. This is, by the way, one of the best configurations for psychological healing, for going into some sort of psychotherapy, for, doing some sort of hypnosis therapy even, or any sort of deeper therapy where you are addressing core issues and healing yourself from the inside out. There's going to be reverberations from this that are going to extend way beyond just what you think it will. This is also the house of fear and, past trauma. So a lot of different types of fear and past trauma could be coming up right now. And whatever it is, it's not necessarily because the same thing is happening in the moment. That's not what I mean. It's that something triggering is coming up, or something that reminds you of the experience is coming up. And that's a cue to jump in and to heal, right? To do what you need to do to get the help that you seek. If you are somebody who's in the field of psychology or, any form of like psychological or internal healing, this is a time where profound headway can be made, where you could take things to the next level when it comes to your ability to help others and to heal. And even if you're not in that profession, what you're going through right now, you're going to use in that way at some point in time to help other people, even if it's just your friends and family. There could be insecurity, guilt, shame, vulnerability, difficulty that comes up for you around money, and especially joint finances, debt, taxes, inheritance. You need to address that. The psychological component of it is way worse than what's actually physically happening, regardless of what you think. So address the fear around it, address the awkwardness or the vulnerability or the shame that you feel. Maybe you have a lot of debt and something's coming up with this and you feel ashamed. You have to move past that. You have to heal through that, because you're going to need help. Like, this is where something is going to come in to help you address that, or someone is going to come in to help you address that. And if you're too ashamed to take a hold of that opportunity, you're not going to have that opportunity. You're not going to be able to work through it and move past it. So that's something that might be coming up as well. For Libra and for Libra rising. So for Libras, this is happening in your 7th house, which is the house of relationships. This one's pretty straightforward. Old wounds, old insecurities, old vulnerabilities, shame, guilt, whatever it is that's coming up for you on that end in relationships. And that could be something that's manifesting from a past relationship. It could be a current relationship. It could be that you're in no relationship, but you're reflecting on like why, these relationships in the past didn't necessarily work for you, or what you need to do to heal in order to move into the right relationship. You could actually move into a relationship right now that's deeply, deeply healing for you. But if that's the case, something uncomfortable is going to come up that you have to address in order to get there around this time, potentially. This could also just be that you're in a relationship and you guys go through a very profound healing process together. And, if your relationship has been rocky or tumultuous in some way, this could be that point in time where maybe you seek out counseling. That would be a great thing to do during this period. Or maybe you just work on the relationship very consciously and very actively together, even though it feels uncomfortable, even though it feels really vulnerable. And that takes things to a completely new level. For some of you, though, new relationships could come in where that person is like a balm to your soul. It's like, it just feels so soothing and so healing and so nurturing. It does maybe dredge up some stuff, but it also feels like, wow, this is the relationship I need right now to kind of move past my stuff and to have a healthy actual relationship with somebody moving forward. And so this is a lot of what's coming up for Libra. For Scorpio and Scorpio rising. So for Scorpio, this energy is happening in your 6th house, which is the house of health, work, and daily routines. This one could be a very literal healing process. It could be that there's something going on here psychologically, mentally, like a blockage from an old wound, an old trauma, an old insecurity, an old vulnerability around your health, very literally, or a health experience or an experience with illness that left you feeling a little traumatized, that you need to address, work on, move past, heal through in order to experience true physical healing and the physical manifestation of healing. That could be part of this. There could also be a guilt, shame, vulnerability, insecurity, something coming up around being in either a healthcare role or a caregiver role. So if you're somebody who's in the role of caring for someone else, there could be like a lot of guilt around what you need to do, and a lot of guilt around this situation that's preventing you from focusing on your own health, your own needs, your own goals, your own ambitions. And again, that's something that needs to be worked through in whatever way feels good and makes sense to you, obviously, because everyone's situation is going to be a little bit different with that. This is a really important, good time to take care of your physical health too. Like if you want to take things completely to a new level when it comes to your physical healing, address the mental stuff, but this is a great time for a new healthcare routine, a new exercise routine, new nutrition, new supplementation, seeing a new doctor, whatever it is. It's like fated that you were to connect with this person or this program at this time. And so this could be wonderful. And if you are a healer, this is great energy for taking things to the next level with your healing profession and with the work that you're doing very literally in healing and helping to heal and guide other people. It's kind of like you've been there, done that. You're working through your own stuff and now you're showing others the way. Or if you feel awkward about it because you're like, I'm not all the way there yet, it's still really important. Like you can show other people the way. You're ready. You can do this. This is completely aligned with what's going on right now astrologically. And this would be another great, if you're a Scorpio rising and you want to take your healing practice to the next level, this is a great one for signing up for medical astrology foundations as well. A link is down in the description. All right, so for Sagittarius and Sagittarius rising, this is happening in your 5th house, which is the house of joy. And so the first thing I see here with this, so this is not the worst energy out of all of the placements. In fact, it's one of the best. So lucky Sagittarius, your awkward healing, trauma, whatever thing that's going on here with Chiron, not so awkward, not so traumatic. But there could be guilt, shame, insecurity around joy and experiencing joy. So I see this very commonly in people who have Chiron natally in their 5th house. They feel guilty when they're doing things that they love to do. They feel guilty about experiencing pleasure in some way. Don't feel guilty. This is the time to heal through that. You need to connect with your joy. In fact, there is something brand new that you have never experienced in this lifetime or in any lifetime that is going to bring you so much joy that you need to move into, embrace. And if you have this psychological blockage that's not allowing you to do that, that's going to be a problem when we get to the eclipse season. And so do the things that bring you joy and get over feeling guilty about it. You need that. Everybody needs that. This could also be an energy around some sort of wound, guilt, trauma around children or your children. Maybe your relationship with your children has been strained. Now's the time to work on healing that. Maybe, you don't have children because you feel afraid because you had some really bad experience in the past, but that's something maybe deep down inside you want. Now's the time to heal through that. There's a lot of different ways that could manifest in the area of children. Speaking of children, the 5th house is the house of reproduction and sex. And so, there could be, and this is very common in our society, some sort of shame that you feel around your sexuality and your sexual expression. And that's inhibiting romance. That's inhibiting your ability to connect with somebody on that level, to connect with your partner on that level, to enjoy the passion that you deserve to enjoy. And so that's another avenue for healing. This also could be just as simple as something like you start learning a certain healing modality and you get really passionate about it. It brings you joy and you incorporate that into some sort of business because the 5th house is very entrepreneurial as well. And so all of these things are potentials for Sagittarius. All right, for Capricorn and Capricorn rising. So for Capricorns, this energy is happening in your, where'd it go? There it is, the 4th house. So this is happening in your 4th house, which is the house of home, family, and real estate, property, things of that nature. Most likely with this placement, this is going to be some sort of karmic, deeply rooted trauma, maybe an ancestral trauma that isn't even connected to you, but it's connected to your parents or your parents' parents or your parents' parents' parents in some way that you need to heal through. So there's going to be something going on here involving your early childhood experience, something going on here around your connection with your family or with your parents, something going on here around your connection with your family in adulthood, like the family that you create. There's some sort of guilt, shame, vulnerability, insecurity, awkwardness, wound that needs to be addressed and needs to be healed so you can move forward with what you truly want, need, and desire in this area. This is about looking at what you want your family situation to look like, what you want your family dynamic to look like, what you want your family relationships to look like, and looking at what is actually stopping you psychologically and internally, especially from achieving that, from having that. Is it because you feel awkward showing affection, to your family? Is it because you were made to feel ashamed, about those types of things in the past? Is it because you had a very traumatic upbringing and, that situation isn't fully resolved internally? Like, what is holding you back from having what you want and having peace in the home? That's really what this is going to be about for Capricorns. There could also be some sort of fear, insecurity, vulnerability around homelessness, very literally, for a certain subset of people who have this configuration. I've definitely seen that, with people who have this natally, and, even by transit, it can bring something like that up. Not that it's going to make you homeless, but it could be a fear or an insecurity that's tied to a past life experience of homelessness that you need to work on, or you need to work through, so that way you can embrace what you came here to do in this lifetime when it comes to property ownership, or having the perfect, most beautiful home, or whatever it is that you're wanting to do here. For Aquarius and Aquarius rising. So for Aquarius, this is happening in your, I keep losing it, third house. This is happening in your third house. And so there could be some sort of guilt, shame, vulnerability, insecurity that's preventing you from speaking your mind, from sharing what you need to share with other people. There could also be a difficulty or a wound that's coming up for you that needs to be healed, involving some sort of traumatic experience with your siblings or extended family members that you need to, again, heal through, work through, because you're moving into the next level with something. And this is coming up in a way that isn't just impacting you in this lifetime. This is going to impact you in many lifetimes to come. This is very important that you pay attention to what's coming up right now, and that you actually do something with it, that you heal through it, that you address it. There is potentially also some sort of difficulty or guilt maybe around transportation, vehicles. It's kind of a weird one. Trauma potentially around vehicles, or driving in a car or something like that from the past that could be coming up for you, that you need to heal through and work through and address in some way. But definitely looking at your relationship with your extended family, with your neighbors, and the people that surround you in your neighborhood and your community. And also, if you are a healer and you're somebody who works in a healing profession, doing maybe like a community-based service or a community-based like group of some kind that's oriented toward that healing that you work in or that you do, or maybe teaching something in general, it could even be online, or starting a blog, or doing videos, or sending out email newsletters, or if you're in this profession too, maybe something involving marketing as well. But really, this is more about sharing information. So it's about taking your experience and what you know, involving like healing and helping other people and guiding other people through this process, and turn that into information that other people can make use of. That would be a really, really great way to use this energy. And then finally, for Pisces and Pisces rising, last but never least, this is happening in your second house. We have Chiron conjunct the North Node. This is pretty straightforward. A lot of people have these issues. Any money issues that you have in your brain, in your psychology, any trauma, insecurity, vulnerability, guilt, shame, awkwardness, difficulty that you have from that stems from your, not just your past, but it's impacting you in the present, involving money. What is your money mindset? Where does that come from? Did your parents have a bad relationship with money? Did they pass that on to you? Did your ancestors have a bad relationship with money? Was that passed on to you maybe in some sort of like genetic or epigenetic way? Whatever it is, there's something going on here where your money mindset is an issue. You need to heal through past wounds, past trauma, past experiences that were not so nice and not so comfortable involving money. And there could be uncomfortable experiences involving resources that come up right now. Things are changing for you financially. It looks like they're changing toward the direction of increase. But to get there is going to be a little turbulent. It could have some ups and downs. It could feel like you're on a little bit of a roller coaster when it comes to your finances. And that could feel unnerving, and that could make you feel insecure or vulnerable in some way. So looking at the psychological first, that's going to help you when the physical manifests. And when the physical manifests, you'll be able to take hold of that and turn it into something really good. So when we come into that eclipse season in April, there's definitely going to be some financial changes coming up for you. You want to get ahead of that when it comes to your mindset around money, so you are mentally and psychologically prepared. You've healed through a lot of that old baggage around money and around financial security, material security, possessions. Maybe you feel guilty about having money. Maybe you feel guilty about, just using money and having wealth and gaining wealth, because a lot of people have that too. If that's you, you need to let go of that, because money's potentially going to be coming in for you. And if you have that blockage, you're not going to allow it. It's not going to work out in the way that it could. So definitely work on that, work through that. I would say that's the biggest thing for Pisces and for Pisces rising people. All right, you guys, so that was my forecast for all 12 signs. If you enjoyed this video, like it, comment below and let me know how you're doing with this Chiron-North Node energy. Share this with a friend if you feel like they could benefit from what we talked about today. Subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye, everyone.